How's it going, creeps? I'm Justin James.
And I'm Andrew Henderson.
And this is episode 9 of Cinema Creep, a Black Mass Films podcast where we dissect all things vile and disgusting in the world of horror cinema. I think I left a word out of there, but it's okay because you guys should know by now what we do here. So this episode is, of course, sponsored by Everblack Coffee. Go to everblackcoffee.com and get a bag for yourself. It is amazing, ethically sourced, high quality coffee with a dark twist, and it's what we drink here on the show. So how you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing excellent, Justin. I've been waiting and super stoked for this episode. How have you been?
Same. I've been wanting to get this green glow going for a while. So I've been pretty good. It's been a week. Helped you get a canoe. So we actually got to hang out outside of work and the podcast. So that was fun.
Listen, that fucking canoe. I am so stoked on this canoe. I drove around. Let me tell you a quick story. I drove around ever since we got the canoe with the intention of going to the mountains, but it's like rained every evening. So yep. I've been that guy that's just driving around with a canoe on top of my Jeep. So the thing about it though, is I was telling Tawny, I said, I may not be canoeing or I may not have stuck this thing in the water yet. I said, but I bet every time I'm driving down the road, people are like, that fucking guy is going somewhere awesome. While they're like going to work, they're probably like, look at that fucking lucky bastard right there. And I'm like, just going to like the dentist or going somewhere to drive to the dentist with the fucking canoe on top of the Jeep. So
that's what I'm saying. You need to like hose it down and just like go down the road.
Just make it look wet all the time.
Yeah. Put some Vaseline on it so the water beads up and just stays there.
Do you know how fucking hard that thing is to get on and off by myself?
Well,
I've taken it on and off by myself a couple times now. So
trying to get used to it.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about what we've watched a little bit. I mean, we don't have too much like horror news tonight. I mean, just some, little Courtney Cox did confirm that she's going to, reprise her role as Gale Weathers in the new Scream film, which I'm pretty excited about because, all of the legacy characters are coming back. But as far as what we've watched, what'd you watch this week?
So I just hit some OG movies this week. I was just I was watching through a lot of older films, and it was really not a week for me checking out new stuff. I just don't know why, because there's a lot of new stuff on streaming right now. Like I'm really, really looking forward to watching In Search of Darkness, which is 4-hour long documentary, yes. That's covering all of like 80s horror.
80s horror. Yeah.
But the problem is I want to reserve me 4 hours to watch it all at once. So I've kind of been holding off on that till I have that block of free time.
And sit down and just
Oh yeah. Some Takis and some Everblack. Nothing goes better with Takis than Everblack coffin shaker.
Well, legitimately, like I don't know why, like coffee with like a good amount of creamer, not like a shitload, but is like the ultimate remedy for spicy stuff. Like I don't, that's just me, I guess, but it's just how it is.
I'll keep that in mind. I like to just panic. When I eat really hot shit, I like to just panic and then
sit there and sweat.
Well, first I like to just sweat and be like, oh, I'm so manly. I can take this. This ain't shit. And then I'm like, I can't take this. I'm not a man. I can't do it. And then it's like, well, I mean, how many slices of bread can I eat?
Well, milk is good for that because, it has to do with the whole like shit. That shit that we learned in science class. Like how acidic something is or whatever. But so milk is really good for spicy food, but I don't drink a whole lot of milk. I do drink almond milk, but almond milk doesn't really do that same thing for me. I don't really drink it plain. So coffee with creamer. Remember that next time you're sitting there eating Takis, sweating like Will Ferrell watching Cops and Step Brothers.
Yeah. But, okay. Well, duly noted then.
Yeah.
But yes, so my pick, guys, this week is The Hills Have Eyes 1977, directed by Wes Craven and written by Wes Craven. So like a lot of these movies from this time, like I forget, like I know them well, right? But I forget like that people like Wes Craven are the ones that wrote and directed these. Like I know if you were to ask me, but like when you go back and you watch them, and then you think, wow, Wes Craven did this. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
they're more just filthy, grimy.
Yeah, these are a lot
just
more
like true to that
gritty.
1970s horror.
Yeah, it's very gritty,
right, for sure.
grindhouse kind of
Then
stuff.
if you watch something like Nightmare on Elm Street, right, which is, it's a fucking horror, masterpiece, but you go back and you watch this and you're like, God damn, this makes me feel kind of gross. I didn't know Wes Craven could make me have that emotion,
Right.
And it's sort of like, Last House on the Left, that's a Sean S. Cunningham of, Friday the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's the same thing. You watch it and you're like, holy fuck, they have, of course, they're really disgusting horror, because Last House on the Left is just disgusting. I like it, but it's just disgusting. It just makes me feel uncomfortable when I watch it. Like anything dealing with rape or anything like that just makes me feel like really just uncomfortable to watch.
Right.
But, so The Hills Have Eyes, 1977. If you guys have never seen it, please go watch it. Of course, there was a remake, and the remake wasn't terrible. Who did the remake, Justin? Do you know? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Was
I'll
it like
look
an
it up real
Anchor
quick while
Bay,
you,
or was it yeah, so look that up and let me know while I go through this. So if you don't know what The Hills Have Eyes are, it's basically there's a family and they're taking a trip, and on the way to California, a family has the misfortune to have their car break down in an area closed to the public and inhabited by violent savages ready to attack. So these people are essentially, they're like a family of inbred desert people that are, when it says savages, it's more or less like they have yet to come on modern times, right? So they're living out in the desert in a cave, and basically they're cannibals,
Yeah, super primitive.
Right, super primitive. It's super gnarly. It's now I can't remember. I know the remake has it shows why they're living out there, and they're like part of like radioactive fallout, right?
Yeah,
sort of like all the
they lived there and refused to leave when the government told them that they needed to, because they were going to do like nuclear testing.
Right, all the nuclear testing and all that stuff that they do out there. So I remember liking the remake. I've seen it several times. It's pretty rad for what it is. But
I think it's the best remake from that era. Like you had Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake and all that stuff. Like I think The Hills Have Eyes, the 2006 was
Jessica
the best.
Biel wet T-shirt contest massacre.
Yeah. I do feel like though The Hills Have Eyes 2006 was the best remake from that kind of.
Oh, well, there we go. That makes sense. It's by Alexander Aja, the dude that did High Tension, and he did Piranha 3D. Did you ever watch Crawl?
Crawl? No, I've been meaning to watch that. God. I just haven't checked it out yet.
Crawl is pretty sick. Like it's one of those that you read the synopsis, but he did Crawl as well. But you read the synopsis and you're like, that's kind of very sci-fi TV channel original. But when you watch it, it really makes you feel the suspense. So what they did in this movie, Crawl, I'm not going to go too far into it, guys, but it's basically, here's a synopsis real quick. A young woman, while attempting to save her father during a Category 5 hurricane, finds herself trapped in a flooding house and must fight for her life against alligators. So at first you're like, well, that kind of sounds stupid. But when you watch it, the way that it is directed, the way that it's written, does an exceptional job at making you feel suspense, right? Like you really start feeling for these characters and you start like cheering them on. You're like, oh, fuck yeah, do it, And not a lot of movies anymore really make me feel that way, where it's like you really want to see the characters succeed because you kind of care about the character and their backstory, right?
Right.
So Crawl's from 2019, watch it. But that's why I think The Hills Have Eyes remake was good, was because this guy, Alexander Aja, is just a phenomenal director, because everything he's done, I think so far, I've liked. So, Hills Have Eyes, 1977. What did you watch this week?
Okay, so I watched a movie. Now you're making me want to go back and watch the couple of The Hills Have Eyes, because I think the first two like originals were pretty good. But I finally watched 2019's The Wretched. I've been getting a lot of people telling me I need to check this out on Twitter and stuff. and it looked interesting at first, like from the cover art. So I finally checked it out. I was kind of disappointed, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, so this is written and directed by Brett Pierce and Drew Pierce. So they are brothers. The synopsis for this was: a defiant teenage boy struggling with his parents' imminent divorce faces off with a 1,000-year-old witch who is living beneath the skin of and posing as the woman next door. So it sounds super interesting, you know, when you read the synopsis, but when you watch it, it's Fright Night. It's just, instead of a vampire, it's a witch. So, I mean, it's kind of like Fright Night, Stranger Things, and the Blair Witch had a drunken threesome, and this is the abandoned love child.
Which sounds sick, though, but...
It does as a concept, but just watching it, I mean, it feels like, you know, the same kind of story that we've seen before, but it was like a more lackluster version of, you know, something that you would have seen in Fright Night, or even more thriller than horror. What's the movie with Shia LaBeouf, and he's on house arrest, and his neighbor's like Disturbia. Yeah, like it feels like you're watching one of those movies, but they just changed, instead of a vampire or some like psychopath living next door, it's this witch, and she's like snatching up people's kids. And there are some supernatural elements, like she's making the people forget who they are, like their family and stuff. So
I'm looking at, you know, stills from the film right now. Mm-hmm. And the witch, is she the person wearing the animal skull on her head? Or, yes. Okay, so is she a younger witch or an older witch?
No,
younger?
So she's old, like she's like 1,000 years old, but she possesses the neighbor next door.
Okay.
So you don't see her as like an old woman or whatever. Like she looks like, you know, the neighbor is supposed to be like this young mom, and you know, she's conventionally attractive, and she's like this alternative girl, and the neighbor like sees her and he's curious about her, and then she just starts acting really weird. And then he starts suspecting her of being a witch and starts like catching on to her. And then she starts, you know, very Jerry Dandridge style from Fright Night, catches on that he's on to her and starts fucking with him, and like taking the people close to him and threatening him and putting him in danger and stuff. So
on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give it like overall? Because I know you said it was kind of... I mean, is it worth like me checking out? Is it worth a watch?
Checking out. Like, it's not complete garbage. It's just I was expecting more out of it, I guess. I'd give it a 5.5. It's not the worst film that I've seen. I just, like I said, I went into it expecting something different than what I got, I guess.
You were hoping for more of original content, huh?
Yeah, but it was now, one cool thing though is the brothers who wrote and directed this, their dad is one of the special effects artists that worked alongside Tom Savini on the original Evil Dead. So
sick.
Bart Pierce is their dad.
That's another thing I've been binging over the past week is the Evil Dead movies.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do an episode on that soon for sure.
Oh, that's coming, ladies and gentlemen. That is on its way. That is hot in the queue.
Yep. So, I mean, that's really all I've had time to watch, other than, you know, the films we're about to talk about, and then of course a documentary about said film. So,
right, okay.
Unless you've got anything else to talk about, then.
No, I don't.
Right, all right, yeah. So, if you guys are fans of this podcast and you ever take anything that we are ever going to suggest you to go watch Reanimator. For the love of all things unholy, watch Reanimator. So this is in my top 10 films or horror films.
Sits very high in mine as well. Probably top 5.
Yeah. So
it sits pretty high.
So this film came out in 1985. Written by Stuart Gordon. Directed. Wait, I think we mixed this up. Yeah. So it's directed by Stuart Gordon.
Yes.
Written by Dennis Paoli, William Norris, and of course Stuart Gordon himself. Now, I want to point out this was Stuart Gordon's debut, right? Like, he was a theater guy before this,
right? Him and his wife.
Yeah. So they actually like started a theater company. And then he wanted to take his chance on a film. So the cast in this is great. You got Jeffrey Combs, Bruce Abbott, Barbara Crampton, David Gale, Robert Sampson, just to name a few. So if you guys have never even heard of this film, it is, I don't want to say loosely, but it's also not directly following the exact story. But H.P. Lovecraft's Reanimator. You see, I've got my H.P. Lovecraft tales here and Reanimator. But so basically, it's about the synopsis is after an odd new medical student arrives on campus, a dedicated local and his girlfriend become involved in bizarre experiments centering around the reanimation of dead tissue. So, this fucking movie, Andrew.
Yeah, so this movie is one of those films, one of those horror films that delivers on all fronts, no matter what it is that you like horror for. If you like the campy style horror, a la Evil Dead, this has that. If you like it where it's just a gore fest, this has that.
Definitely.
If you like it for the gratuitous nudity, this has that. If you like it for the storyline, I think this has a pretty good storyline. I mean, like you said, it's an H.P. Lovecraft tale. And a funny thing about that, Justin, is the original Reanimator series that Lovecraft was writing, reportedly, he didn't even like the story at all. He only wrote it because I think it made him like 5 cents a story or something like that, which I guess was a lot of money back then. Maybe it was $5. I think it was 5 cents, but it made him a little bit of money. And that's the only reason he had, written it at all. And he continued to write it. But yeah, so I think the story is pretty rad, right? I mean, it's essentially sort of like Dr. Frankenstein, meets,
right.
I don't know, ER or like Grey's Anatomy or something. I don't know.
It does have, especially the film adaptation, with the introduction of like the Dan Cain character and stuff like that. But this movie, to me, what I've always liked about this film, other than like, Jeffrey Combs is the fucking GOAT. Like, I don't know, like Jeffrey Combs and everything he's done, even if the movie isn't that great, carries that shit.
Oh yeah, just Jeffrey Combs as an actor, is just he's phenomenal.
Well, he came from theater too,
right?
But,
so like a couple Jeffrey Combs like heavy hitters. Justin, what would you say other than Reanimator is one that you think people should check out just to get a feel for him?
From Beyond,
yep,
for sure. And even if you want to watch a movie to see what I mean by the movie might be mediocre, but Jeffrey Combs is killer in it, is something like Would You Rather? Like, have you like I mean, I enjoy that movie, but I also understand that movie's not like, it's not like a horror masterpiece or anything. It's just kind of a fun little film that you'd put on. You're just wanting to check out some horror movies one night and munch on some Takis. But Jeffrey Combs in that, like, just, I don't know. He has like, you notice in like everything he's in, he just has this like presence. He reminds me of someone like, who am I trying to think of here? Bruce Campbell's got that essence, or if you want to go more traditional, like you got Donald Pleasance, like these guys that when they're in front of a camera, like,
well, you're going to get a hell of a performance. When you say the way he acts is he always plays, I don't want to say he plays the same character, but he always has that, the way he delivers his lines,
he's
sort of like
smug
his
motherfucker.
Right, exactly. Like the way he plays Herbert West that's the role he was born for. Like nobody else could have played that, not as well as he did. And all around good character. So is the guy that played Dan Cain. He was pretty Bruce solid Abbott. In that role. Yep. Yeah, Bruce Abbott. And Barbara Crampton is in this, right? Like
she's also in From Beyond.
Right. So Barbara Crampton is another, basically a horror legend. She's been in so many things. Movies like of course, we said Reanimator, From Beyond, Puppet Master. She had a role in that. What else? You're Next, Lords of Salem, Tales of Halloween, We Are Still Here, which if you haven't seen We Are Still Here, that is a phenomenal freaking movie. That is by, we talked about this in a past episode, Ted Geoghegan.
Geoghegan, yep.
That's not how you say his name. It's something that's Geogheghan.
While you're mentioning that, I want to say, because I forgot to put this in the notes real quick, leaving the Reanimator topic for 2 seconds. So if you listen to our last episode about Halloween Kills, we kept referring to the doctor from Halloween 2018 as like Dr. Zyphram because we couldn't remember his name. To correct ourselves, it is Dr. Sartain. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure Zafran is like some sort of like male performance enhancement drug or something. Safran, or that's like some sort of like depression medication or something. I don't know. It is definitely something like that. I guarantee. You know what, Justin? I'm going to phone in a scientist real quick.
Phone in. I swear to God, one day this is going to be a legitimate segment on this podcast. Phone in a scientist.
Nope. Saffron is a Hindi word though, apparently. So there's that.
All right. So back to Reanimator. You were talking about Barbara Crampton, right?
Yes. So Barbara Crampton, of course, she is phenomenal in this. She could have very easily been a disposable character in this film. Like if they would have cast anybody else, or if they wouldn't have been careful with who they cast in this role, then that character could have been very easily just like annoying or forgettable, right? But she played Megan Halsey, and she had, of course, the proper look to play that character, and just like the way she played sort of like that almost overly intrusive girlfriend, like, hey, Dan Kane, like, I don't think you should let this guy move in with you. I'm going to snoop around the house looking for Rufus and the cat, and I'm going to sneak into Herbert West's room, so she was like overly intrusive in a couple ways.
I thought I was renting a private room, Dan.
Right. And, so like just everything she does in this movie, the way she played her character was exceptional, and I don't think she should be overlooked at all. Even though not. Jeffrey Combs steals the show, but Oh
yeah, but then you've also got, dude, like the cast of this period, like David Gale, like right. Every time there was a scene with Jeffrey Combs and David Gale interacting together, that's like, just imagine being on that set like while that was happening.
Right. Yeah, so David Gale, interesting. I don't know if you read any about this, but I always thought it was something interesting because I had heard about it before, but I wanted to go back and research a little bit more. They talk about it in the documentary we watched too.
Yeah. About his wife.
I wanted to research a little bit more just to make sure before we mention it here, but everywhere I've looked, it's presented as factual information that so there's a scene in Reanimator where David Gale's character, Dr. Hill, of course he's dead. He gets killed by Herbert West, and, he gets reanimated, and, he's reanimated, or his head's reanimated, and his body's basically carrying his head around. And throughout the movie, Dr. Hill has this weird obsession with Barbara Crampton's character. And it's a weird perversion because he's a whole lot, older than she is. This is something becoming a trend in our podcast about old dudes. It seems to be
a reoccurring theme here with these films.
But at least she is of college age, right? So she's not a high schooler, and they don't present her as a high schooler.
Yeah, but he did work closely with her dad's like the dad character, so that made it even weirder.
Right. So there's a scene in this movie where he basically kidnaps her, and he's essentially trying to like rape her, right? Like he's holding his head,
trying to give her head
while he has her stripped naked on a table in a morgue. And so reportedly his wife in real life, when she saw the film, got up and stormed out of the theater, and it eventually led to a divorce between David Gale and his wife. So pretty hilarious in a way, right? Like his wife was like, I can't believe you did that,
right?
And like couldn't separate the art from reality, and was like, you know what, it's time for a divorce.
Would you say that she lost her head.
Good one. Yeah. So, so that is an interesting true fact about this movie. Justin, when you think about Reanimator, what is your favorite scene, or what is one of your favorite, things about this movie?
Well, one of my favorite scenes, and this was even before I watched the documentary. I've always loved the basement cat scene. Just because now at the first time like I ever saw this movie, I didn't know that certain things were like the light moving was an accident, but I just always thought that scene was cool. How they used the light moving to hide what's really going on, or the lack thereof, really, because basically Herbert West has shown Dan Cain that, hey, I reanimated your cat, but of course it comes back and it's like feral and it's like a zombie cat, right? So then it's attacking Herbert West and they're trying to fight it off, but it's like a puppet, or it's like a stuffed cat. So when they're being chased by it or chasing it through the basement, there's nothing really there. And I just always thought it was cool how the light is swinging. And then I thought it was even cooler when I find out that was a complete accident. Like they were moving the camera and hit the light, and then it started swinging. I guess that scene, and probably, I don't know. I think I've always thought the scene too with the buzzsaw was cool, especially now that I know how they did that as well.
You're talking about where the entrails come out and wrap around Jeffrey Combs?
No, that's cool too. Like you're talking about at the end, like the final battle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about when they're in the morgue and they reanimate like the big muscular dude, like Arnold Schwarzenegger's double.
Yeah.
And he like puts the bone saw through him.
Yeah. And the way they showed it in the documentary. So there's a documentary, guys, that what's the name of that? Do you remember?
It's like Resurrectus.
Yeah, it's a documentary that covers basically the making of Reanimator and goes in detail about it. It's actually on Vimeo, so you can look up Reanimator documentary Vimeo. We found it free on there. It's super rad. If you're into this movie, you would probably love it. But yeah, so my favorite scene, Justin, is I'm a sucker for in films when things have sheets over their head, right? Because that's always leads to this, my mind makes it scarier than what it actually is.
Right.
So when they're doing the final battle and all of those dead people in the morgue, they all set up at the same time. Yeah, that's so sick. I love that. My other favorite scene from the film is the one thought you were referring to earlier, and that's when Jeffrey Combs is standing there, Herbert West is standing there, and you have the body that's sitting up against the wall with the entrails that shoot out, and they wrap around his neck. I think that's super sick, especially now that, like you said, I know how they did it after watching the documentary.
Right. Now, that's probably my favorite special effect in the film, just because I'm a sucker for reverse cinematography. So
it makes it so much easier.
Yep. It's like the scene in is it Aliens? Is it the second one where like the face hugger like jumps on her face, and they did that in reverse too.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Mina scene in Dracula that we talked about as well.
Yep.
So before we go to the second movie, because if you guys did not know, there is a trilogy of Reanimator movies.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a couple fun facts of this movie. Of course, we mentioned earlier the not so fun fact of David Gale's wife divorcing him when she saw the beheaded head giving scene.
Yep.
Also, let me see. Of course, you guys know if you grew up putting glow sticks in water, like you can snap open glow sticks or cut them open, put them in water. It'll, of course, make glowing liquid. So that's really all it was that they used in Reanimator.
Reagent. Yep.
Yeah, through all three films is like, it's that simple sometimes, So sometimes that kiss, keep it simple, stupid idea really works out. So in something as simple as that created an awesome special effect. What about that opening soundtrack, that opening score, Justin?
Okay.
Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so I have always thought this myself about it sounding like Psycho. Now, I didn't know that apparently when this film came out, there were some people a little upset by that, thinking, that it was a complete ripoff of the Bernard Herrmann score. But
Oh, it's so sick though,
it
Like
is.
I've
and
always
it
loved that
fits,
opening
though.
score. Yeah.
Like it fit, especially with the opening title sequence. I feel like if it would have been a different style, it just wouldn't have worked the same. I don't know. Something like that's why I like this film. Before we start going into the other two a little bit, this film, very seldom do you ever have a film that like fires on all cylinders, right? I mean, you've got a movie where it's like, oh, like I like the plot, but maybe the acting wasn't there, or man, the acting was great but the story was just kind of meh, or the direction was boring, or the cinematography's lacking, or the score, something is like no movie can ever be 100% perfect, right? But to me,
Reanimator is pretty goddamn close.
This is one of those, like, to me, like the story progression, it's so tight, and the pacing is damn near perfect. And I think a lot of that comes from, Stuart Gordon's theater experience, because this almost feels like you're watching, like, even though the cinematographer had a big part in helping Stuart Gordon understand how to direct a film, because it is a different type of storytelling than a stage play, it still feels to me very tight and directed like a stage play. Like,
well, one thing too that helped with that, not to cut you off,
no, you're good.
The relationship that Bruce Abbott and Barbara Crampton, had throughout the film, like,
Yep.
They sort of said in the documentary, well, Barbara Crampton sort of said it was, they sort of had, like, I don't want to say a fling, but they almost were basically, officially dating, right? And so the way that, just the way their characters play off of one another, I think we talk about how strong of an actor she was, but also Bruce Abbott as well, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
and the way they could play off each other was just unbelievable. And I really am surprised that Bruce Abbott, I mean, he went on to do more things, but like, I don't think he did anything as big as Reanimator. I could be wrong. But I'm looking through his IMDb creds right now, and I don't think he did anything bigger. And,
Right.
or at least not that I know of. And like, he's a fantastic actor, and his last gig looked like it was in 2010 as an actor. So, I really, really wish he'd get back out there and get into some things, because he was exceptional.
Yeah, I think he did a really good job, and they did make a good, they played off each other well. What'd he say in the documentary? It's kind of hard to be awkward around someone when you spent half a day in bed with them.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Something just about the way every part of this film clicks. The story, the actors, and how, this film, there are moments that are funny, but it's not like they're playing it comical. They're not going for that. Like, they're creating tension, and the way they're acting just naturally causes these moments where you can sit back and kind of laugh a little, because it's like you're sitting in a theater watching a stage play, to me. And I've always admired that about this film. Especially, I think it's amazing how it turned out that way.
This
Given
film is so fucking wild, though.
It is. It's fucking over the top. There's so much gore. The special effects are insane. But, especially after watching that documentary, finding out just how inexperienced Stuart Gordon was at directing this, and seeing the finished product, though, I would have never guessed that, because it's just so, like, it's almost like it's methodical. Like, everything about it is just, I don't know. To me, that's how I've just always felt about this movie. It doesn't miss a beat. There's not a dull moment. The story never lets up.
Yeah, well, the interesting part about it was, you talked about the organic theater, the theater that Stuart Gordon and his wife were a part of. They actually approached that theater to shoot Reanimator on their soundstage, or at the theater, and they were like, nope, not having it. But it's like, look at the cult following and the success that followed with this film. And, historically, this happens, right? With horror, or with actors and directors, is like, they always try to get somebody involved, and then, you know, whether it be a studio or whether it be, you know, something as simple as like a theater, and then or an actor, right? So another interesting fact about this movie. So at the beginning of the movie, Dan Cain it shows him trying to resuscitate a woman at the beginning of the film, and it's reported that the woman that's being resuscitated was a dildo enthusiast, quote unquote, and apparently she would hide dildos around the set. So if that tells you anything about life on the Reanimator set. Oh, what about in the documentary where the cinematographer was talking about getting too many weenies in his shot? You remember that?
Oh yeah, so he's it's
in the final battle.
Yeah, the final scene. All the zombies are naked because they were cadavers before. So it's like he was trying to get the angles and the way that everyone was moving. It's like, what'd he say? I've got the Venus in my shot, and he was upset about it because no matter how he tried to frame it, there was a dick. Which eventually, apparently, they didn't care about by the third film. But you know, we'll get
they just said fuck it. There's Reanimator's just got so many dicks. So it's Mac Allberg is the cinematographer. He passed away in 2012, sadly, but you know, he did all sorts of stuff. But Reanimator, he basically really helped blaze the trail on this film because, you know, like Stuart Gordon, he didn't know how to make movies. He just knew how to basically drive a super sick concept. So he had a lot of questions for, like, you know, Mac Allberg, and Mac Allberg really helped him, you know, in terms of becoming a filmmaker, becoming a director. And, you know, but it's hilarious. In the documentary, you'll see him. He's talking about all the penises in that shot and how he couldn't frame them because they couldn't show full frontal nudity, or else they would end up getting an X rating from MPAA. And you don't want to be a horror film that gets pigeonholed on the porno film circuit, because then eventually you're going to do a lot less.
Yeah. Well, eventually they just said fuck the MPAA anyway, because they didn't even take this to them.
Time started changing.
Yeah, well, like, because this was released as unrated, so I don't know. This film to me is
it still says unrated.
Yeah. This to me though is one of those films that's as close to a masterpiece as you can get, just from a technical standpoint and story and acting and just execution. So. Love Reanimator.
So let's talk about the second film in this trilogy, Justin. Bride of Reanimator, 1990. So when you think about Bride of Reanimator, or you think about Reanimator in general, it only makes sense for the second film to be called Bride of Reanimator, because we're just sort of piggybacking off of Frankenstein. You know, how you had Bride of Frankenstein, right? So this was written by Brian Usna, directed by Rick Fry, Woody Keith, Brian Usna, and it cast Jerry Combs,
we
Bruce
messed
Abbott,
up in the
David
notes
Gale.
on those, because I think it was written by Rick Fry. See,
what am I saying?
I copied that from yours and then just changed the name. So it was written by Rick Fry, Woody Keith, and Brian Usna, and it was directed by Brian Usna. Yeah.
There we go. That's what I meant to say.
We'll get our shit together at some point.
No, we won't. So it's cast by Jeffrey Combs, the people in the fucking movie, all right?
Yeah.
You had Jeffrey Combs back, which was super gnarly. Mm-hmm. You also had Bruce Abbott, which is sick that he came back. Now, we didn't get Barbara Crampton because she died in the first movie. But she was supposed to have a cameo in this.
Well,
she kind of died.
Well, she died, but
death is only the beginning.
This is the only thing that makes me mad about the sequel as far as continuity. At the end of the first film, Bruce Abbott's character, Dan Cain, gives her the reagent. Mm-hmm. And then in Bride of Reanimator, they don't talk about that. They just talk about how she was killed, you know, when she was choked by the reanimated corpse when he choked her to death. So it's like they just kind of
does that gnarly
fade
to black, showing the reagent at the end of the first movie once he injects it. So it kind of leaves an ambiguous ending, but we all know once he gives somebody the reagent, Dan Cain or Herbert West, they come back, crazy because, Herbert West has yet to perfect it. And so if they would have brought her back, she would have been probably absolutely insane. But like you said, they don't really follow that up. And she was supposed to have a cameo in the second movie, but she turned it down, or her agent told her to turn it down, that she shouldn't take a part that is, a cameo, right? She shouldn't take a small part in any movie. So these people got to stop listening to their agents and to their fucking bullshit and just be in these fucking movies,
Right.
Like, just come on. You already did the first one. Just, take $10,000 and be in the movie for 10 minutes or whatever it is. But the synopsis behind this one, Justin: Dr. Herbert West and Dan Kane discover the secret to creating human life and proceed to create a perfect woman from dead tissue.
Yeah. See, no, that's what I mean by the continuity. Like, they're trying to bring back his girlfriend, which they're using her heart. So even though they're using like the head of a different woman and the arm and legs and all these different body parts, it's her heart. So it's supposed to be her, which is a cool concept. I think that's the only little minor thing I'm going to nitpick is he gave her the reagent at the end and they don't touch on that. Instead, they just act like that didn't happen. She still died, but that last little 5 seconds of the first one didn't happen. And they're taking her heart and going to like put together Frankenstein style a woman, and it's going to have her heart. So it's going to be her.
That's probably one of my favorite parts about the movie is when Herbert West, presents Barbara Crampton's heart, Megan Halsey's heart to Dan Kane, because he doesn't know that Herbert West somehow, kept her heart all this time. And basically says he's manipulating him because he's really not trying to help him bring back Megan Halsey. He's really
he's
just
all
trying
about
to
his experiments.
Right. So he's like, well, if I can do this, I can get Dan Kane to help me. So here's Megan Halsey's heart. And he's like describing all the different parts of the woman that he put together. And what was it? Like a ballet dancer's feet and like a prostitute's legs and like all these different parts he's going through with all the different jobs these women held. And like, Barbara Crampton's heart. It was very weird science. You remember the movie Weird Science?
Yes.
It was very weird science. But yeah, so this movie picks up in Peru, right? Dr. Herbert West and Dr. Dan Kane, they're like medical volunteers and there's a civil war going on. And they're just there trying to create human life from dead tissue using wounded soldiers, right? So if you think about it, it's kind of weird, right? Because all of a sudden this movie just picks up and they're like in a different country and shit, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? But
right.
If you think about it, if you are a mad doctor that's basically sort of on the run, like what would you do, right? You would probably go to a different country, and if you're really like trying to get your experiments off the ground, you would have to go to like a war zone, right? Somewhere that you can just kind of like harvest body parts, so it sort of makes sense in a way if you think about it along those lines.
Right. Well, here's my like I said, I like this film. I don't think that it's a good sequel, and I think my only problem with it is there are just these little continuity things, like even playing off what you just said, talking about how he's on the run. So they're in a different country now and continuing their experiments in a much different way. But then it's like now they're working in a hospital again.
Yeah, they go back.
Yeah. So it's like, okay,
were they on the run or not?
He was responsible for Dr. Gruber in the first one, like the opening scene, dying, and then he comes to the States, but they kind of explain away, or they kind of explain how he wasn't like sitting in a jail cell at this point for that, but now it's like after everything that happened in the first film, now in the second film he's just allowed to walk freely the halls of this hospital, and
Yeah,
I don't
which
know.
is kind of insane, right?
Yeah, no, it's not. I don't think that makes the film bad, because especially when you're watching this kind of movie, you can't start nitpicking, what would actually be factual, right? Because the whole movie is rooted in so much fantasy, and you've got to have a very heightened suspension of disbelief. But it's just these little nitpicky things, I guess. I don't know.
What about when all of a sudden Dr. Hill has his cameo and he comes back? They have his head and they inject the serum in his head.
Oh my God. And then they put the fucking bat wings on him.
The fucking bat wings, like the shot of his head. You know how like we were talking about in the vampire episode, like how when things turn into bats, I get fucking excited.
Yep.
Like literally when I saw this for the first time and saw Dr. Hill first come back, I was like, fuck yes, that's his head. That's his head. I fucking know it. And then like later on you see him with fucking bat wings on his head. I was like, God damn, this is like the second best thing to ever happen since.
Yeah. Now the climax of this film was pretty fucking insane. Like, it mirrors the first film, so it's like another final battle between Dr. Hill and Herbert West. Only now, like Dr. Hill. Now, this is one thing that I now know after watching that documentary also. So in this film, he's got like the psychic powers, and that's how he's controlling like all of the reanimated corpses and stuff. So, in that documentary, they talk about that was supposed to be a plot line in the first one. They just felt like it was a little too much. So
right.
Now in the second film, they're all about it though. So he's got like his army of reanimated corpses, and they storm Herbert West and Dan Cain's house, which is built it was the mortician's house. It was an old mortician's house, so it's built right next to the like catacombs and stuff and the cemetery. And that's how he keeps going over and getting parts and stuff. But it ultimately ends in this big showdown, and Herbert West is like buried under rubble and stuff like that. So
which I can appreciate that. Sorry, don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. I was done.
Oh, I can appreciate the how they went more classic monster movie with this one, with the whole gothic atmosphere and exactly what you were saying, right? They played more on, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein movies, and I don't know, that really excites me because that I'm a big fan of like the old Universal monsters, the old Hammer films and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I really like the way that they took that and sort of also took H.P. Lovecraft's Reanimator and sort of like married those two together. Bride of Reanimator and Reanimator, it's a killer double feature, Justin.
Yep.
And there are some things about this movie that I would have liked to see done differently when we go back and we talk about Barbara Crampton having a cameo or at least coming back, or that storyline really being fleshed out. But, you can't always control the way Hollywood actors and actresses are going to be from film to film, like I just really wish she would have came back and we would have tied up those loose ends in this film.
I agree.
Or they would have actually ended up, because when they reanimate the perfect woman, I really wish they would have reanimated Barbara Crampton. And then at the end, she would have been in the movie. I would have been like, this is so fucking awesome, right? But it ended up being, I can't remember the actress that played that part, but, she wasn't bad, but she wasn't Barbara Crampton, and,
right.
Like, it's just, I don't know. Like you said, this movie goes from, on the batshit crazy scale, probably from a 1 to 10 on a 4 to a 15 by the end of the movie.
Yep.
And like you said, at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, you have another ambiguous ending where you kind of think that Herbert West dies. You're not sure that he's going to survive. So They kind of really did that on the first film too, right? Like you're not really sure what's going on.
Dan Kane and Megan Halsey get out, and you don't ever see him again. Now, I will say, may as well use this as a little bit of a segue. I wish they would have just let him die, given the sequel that we got, because okay, I got a question for you. Would you rather watch for 10 hours straight Veronica or the third installment in the Reanimator trilogy, Beyond Re-Animator?
So I would normally say that's a hard one, but I'm going to have to say with the presence of Jeffrey Combs, I would take Reanimator 3 Beyond Reanimator. I just can't fucking do Veronica ever again. Like, I really can't.
That's true. Yeah, like, I probably couldn't either. But
you know, like when you get, like when something traumatic happens to you, and like, like I'm not going to do that again because that sucks, right? Like you can feel that pain every time you think about it. So let's just say like if you're hammering a nail, right, into a board and you accidentally hit your thumb, right? It fucking hurts. And you think about that every time you're hammering close to your hand, right?
Yep.
And you're like, God damn, if I hit my thumb, I know that's going to hurt. So you never put your hand there again, or you kind of like, you're more careful. So I'm more careful now because of Veronica navigating through my life. That's how bad that movie's affected me.
That movie was so fucking bad that I wouldn't compare that to hitting your hand with a hammer. I would compare that to like sticking your dick in Listerine or some shit. Like
that escalated quickly.
It did.
Or
That's
how
the
about
whole point.
how about not doing a rolling stop at a stop sign? You're like, I should probably stop every time, because if not, this is gonna suck. If you've ever been in a car wreck, you know what that feels like.
Yeah.
It feels like Veronica.
Yeah.
Go watch it.
Yeah. So you've heard it here from us. Veronica feels like hitting your hand with a hammer, sticking your dick in Listerine, and being hit by a car all at the same time.
Wait. Okay, so let's just inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah.
I've hit my hand with a hammer.
No, I have never stuck my dick in Listerine. I was just trying to think of the most. I was looking at an outlet and I was like, I'd compare Veronica to sticking your dick in an outlet, but who can fit their dick in an outlet? So I was like, what would just suck to stick your dick in? Probably a cup of Listerine. I don't imagine that would feel very good.
It probably would be all right. It probably wouldn't hurt.
Minty fresh.
We need to phone in a doctor.
Phone in a sexual deviant, a stuntman, and a doctor.
Yeah, a sexual deviant, a stuntman, and a doctor walk into a bar.
Who sticks their dick in the Listerine first?
Justin.
Apparently,
Justin's already in the corner, sticking his dick in it.
I beat question. You to it. Hey, there's plenty left. But okay, so before we talk about the third installment in this, I think we should take a quick sponsor break. And then dive into this third film, and then jump into some trivia questions and wrap this one up. What do you think?
Death is just the beginning.
Death is just the beginning. All right, so we're going to take a break, and we will be right back. How's it going, creeps? One quick mid-episode break to tell you a little more about our sponsor. Since 2016, Everblack Coffee Company has delivered exceptional single-origin coffee and high fives all over the world. They understand that a cup of coffee is so much more than something you drink. That's why they source their beans from farms that only use fair trade and organic growing practices. When you buy coffee from Everblack, you can be certain that you're getting the highest quality coffee available by ethical means only. It's time to start looking at coffee differently. Head over to everblackcoffee.com and grab a bag for yourself. It's deliciously dark. Now back to the show. All right, welcome back. So we are about to talk about definitely my least favorite entry in the Reanimator trilogy. And that is 2003's Beyond Re-Animator. So,
with a runtime of 1 hour and 36 minutes, this film is about 1 hour too long.
Yeah.
So the synopsis of this one, guys, is after 13 years in prison, the mad scientist from Reanimator, 1985, gets a new chance to experiment with the arrival of a young prison doctor who secretly hopes to learn to reanimate dead people. Good intentions turn to horror. So,
Horror.
yeah, right. This is directed by Brian Yuzna and
Who also
writers
did Bride of Reanimator.
Yes. So it's kind of weird though that like I don't even know why he'd be a part of this, but written by Jose Manuel Gomez, and of course, you know, based on H.P. Lovecraft characters or the one character, the Jeffrey Combs, Herbert West. Of course, Jeffrey Combs is in this, so that is what initially draws you to it, you know, because when you see it, you're like, well, fuck, Jeffrey Combs is in it, so I'm gonna watch it. But I don't know. Justin,
well, this is another one of those. Yeah, so this is another one of those films where, you know, I said, even though the film may be mediocre, or in this case, in my opinion, just plain shitty, Jeffrey Combs, though, like, he's still, every scene he's in, he carries it. Now, I don't think that the rest of the cast in this movie was terrible, but they definitely did not, you know, have the same star power, or at least the same energy on camera as like Bruce Abbott, David Gale, and who played Megan Halsey again, Barbara Crampton. Like, the cast in the third installment just didn't have the same energy.
Well, yeah, I mean,
not even.
You have a whole lot of D-list actors in this, or people that have done, you know, just maybe not stuff for the American market, should I say? Maybe they've done stuff for other. So there are a lot of unknown actors and actresses in the American market that are in this, which is not to say that they're bad, but they're not traditionally, I guess, like people we know as like American cinema stars, right? So it's not somebody like Jeffrey Combs that you see him and you're like, well, fuck, that's Jeffrey Combs. That dude is a horror icon, you know. And like you said, the other star power in this, like nobody can even come close to what he delivers in this. And a lot of it is because, you know, these people that are in it, they have done some things, but a lot of them are doing stuff like voiceover work and like daytime soap opera work and stuff like that, which is not to downplay that kind of sort of thing. But it's when you have a movie like Reanimator, right? Something that has such a huge cult following, something that is, you know, a mammoth of a movie, right? Like, it's fucking Reanimator. And then you put a bunch of like people that can't really back up Jeffrey Combs. It's sort of, you know, it's gonna flop.
Right. Well, like, you know, because Bruce Abbott didn't come back. That's one thing that pisses me off about this movie, is we don't get any kind of answer of what happens to Dan Cain, the character of Dan Cain from the first two films. It just kind of jumps straight into, you know, the opening scene. Herbert West has brought somebody back to life, and they come in and they kill this little kid's older sister. And then that kid eventually grows up to become like a medical student, and he's a doctor, and he goes to the prison where Dr. West is incarcerated and wants to work with him because he knows what he's capable of. But that character, the actor that plays that character, Jason Barry, who's supposed to be like the Dan Cain replacement, just, he doesn't. Now I'm looking at his IMDb, and he was in Titanic. Yeah, he was Tommy Ryan in Titanic, but none of the rest of this stuff. Okay, he was in Valkyrie, you know, the World War II movie. He was an uncredited SS officer. I'm not really seeing.
When I talk about
else.
it, I'm not trying to downplay anybody's acting career, because I think if you start anything, it's fucking sick. But what I'm saying is, like, the star power, as you mentioned, you know, like that Jeffrey Combs brings in a movie, a trilogy like Reanimator, like we really, really need like at least another character like Bruce Abbott or somebody like that in this to help sell it. Like, how sick would it have been if that the dude that had the I can't remember his name, that had the rat as a pet, if that would have just been Danny Trejo, you know, like,
right.
you know, Danny Trejo would have taken that role. Like Danny Trejo he does not turn down roles, like, you know, to just help back up Jeffrey Combs.
Right.
Which that guy did a fine job. He didn't do a bad job. He just, you know,
he had big shoes to fill in Bruce Abbott, and then he also had a pretty big you know, he had to help carry scenes with someone like we're talking, you know, Jeffrey Combs. So it's not that he was bad, because he wasn't bad in the movie. It's just, I feel like most of my resentment towards that character is that we didn't get any answers on why Dan Cain was working with Herbert West the first two films, and now he's just like, where is he? Now, one thing I do appreciate is that they stuck Herbert West in prison, because it's like, that's long overdue.
Right.
At this point.
Well, the thing, I don't mean to jump backwards one step, but the thing about, you know, Bruce Abbott and Jeffrey Combs is their chemistry together, right? Because it's like, of course you have Dan Cain, who's like the straight and narrow, like, I am here to be a medical doctor and to save lives. And then you have Jeffrey Combs, who's like, I'm here to fucking manipulate everything and take advantage of science and, you know, reanimate lives, right? I'm trying to kill people so I can bring them back to see if, you know, I can further my research. And just the two work together so well that it's hard to take him out of that relationship and replace anybody else in there, because just Dan Cain is like, just sort of like this very wholesome character, right? That like Herbert West manipulates and constantly cock blocks through two films. You know what I mean? And
right.
I don't know, to just not have that bumbling idiot relationship between the two of them. Because it's always like Herbert West is like, oopsie, I killed somebody. And then Dan Cain's like, oh, what are we going to do? And then, you know, it's like, and then Herbert West is like, we're going to reanimate him. And then they come back to life and it's like, oh, they're going to attack us. And then, you know, of course, Dan Cain does something fucking insane, or Herbert West does something insane. And Dan Cain is always there to like help him out of the situation. But like this third installment, you don't get any of that. It's just like, you said it's cool he's in prison because that makes sense. But it's like, also, how can you really make this story like Reanimator in prison? It makes sense that he's there, but it's just so lackluster to me that you just look at the cover of the movie. So full disclosure, I have never seen this movie in my life until, you know, 2 nights ago. And because I've always seen the cover and I was like, that looks like bullshit, I'm not watching that. And I wish I would have gave it a try and watched it multiple times. Maybe I would have liked it better. But like, even, you know, 2 nights ago, I was like, okay, I've got to watch this for the podcast because I can't talk about Reanimator without talking about the third installment. Right, Justin? And, but I kept, you know, finding myself reaching for my phone, and I hate doing that during any movie. I try not to ever do that, but I kept reaching for my phone or like looking around the room, you know, and, you know, of course, off topic, but we have these new kittens in our house. So like these cats are terrorizing my studio, and it's like, I find myself playing with them instead of watching the fucking movie, you know? And it's like, I was not in the film nearly as much as I should have been, because it's just like from the first scene on, you know, like the whole scene that it shows, you know, that doctor as a little kid, I was like, this looks like this might actually be fucking good, right? Because that's the most cinematic looking part of the movie, that, and then the very end of the film. And I was like, okay, well, this actually looks good, because I originally went into the film, Justin, thinking it was going to be like low budget, just, you know, trash. And I was like, okay, all right, I'm in this. All right. And then next thing is like the shot of Herbert West in his prison cell. And then the sergeant walks up, and I'm like, well, that guy is not a good actor, so I know where this movie's going, you know?
Right. Dubious.
Yeah. That took me out of the film right there immediately. I was like, well, fuck. You know?
Yeah. And then, I mean, this film, I think, I'm honestly surprised that it was Brian Usna that did this and the second one, because they almost don't even feel like anyone involved with either the first or second had anything to do with this. This feels like a whole different.
That's the way I feel. Like,
directing. Go ahead.
No, I'm going to say that's exactly, what I was saying is like, it's not mad scientist, Dr. Frankenstein-esque, it's,
Right.
it's I don't know. It's a prison movie. It's a fucking prison movie.
Shawshank Reanimation.
Oh my God, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Shawshank Reanimation.
Yeah, I don't know. This film, because it tries to do the over the top thing like the first two films did. And let me tell you guys, let me actually save you the trouble of ever watching this film, because I don't recommend you watch it. If you want, okay, I recommend you check it out if you want to just see how crazy and goofy and over the top and weird it is. But if you're looking for a serious good time, a good film, watch the first two. Don't watch this. This is the Jason X of this trilogy minus the really cool head smashing scene.
I'd watch Jason X 10 times over before watching this again.
Well, I would too. But Jason X also has that redeeming head smashing scene. This has a dick biting off scene.
Oh my God.
So we're sitting here talking about dicks and Listerine. Like there's a scene. So the warden has now become, he's reanimated and he's also infused. I don't even want to talk about this plot line except for what I'm about to say right now. So they introduce this new thing where they take like this neuroplasm or whatever from the brain, and that's how they're trying to reanimate people, but them not go crazy. But the continuity with this throughout this whole film is off, but they give him like neuroplasm from a rat, so he becomes very rat-like and he does like these little rat gestures and shit. But so he's forcing this reporter to give him a blowjob, but she has also been reanimated, and she's gone kind of, they gave her neuroplasm from the warden, right? So she's caught between like being herself and being like crazy. So she bites his dick off and slings it across the room. And it showed like, you're like, oh, okay, there's a dick flew across the room. But then they show a close up of it. Like they cut to a shot where this rat that's prominent throughout this film runs up and is like chewing on it and running off with it. And it's like the camera stays on this dick for a good like 4 seconds. And you're just like, why?
Yeah.
It's funny. In the first film, the cinematographer's like, I'm trying to not get these dicks in my shot. And in the third film, they're like, we'll just throw a silicone dick over there.
Well, in the third movie, the cinematographer is like, I'm trying to get as many dicks in this shot as possible.
Yeah, I'm trying to get all this dick. And it's just like, it's not even a good effect. It's like a really just, I don't know, dude. Like,
it's sort of like when you're a kid, Justin, and you're making a snake out of Play-Doh and you're rubbing it in between your hands.
It is what this looked like. It was flesh colored, a Play-Doh dick. Like, I could probably go on Amazon right now and find a dildo that looked like a more realistic dick than that. And it's just like, I feel like if you're going to make a point to sit on that frame for any longer than like a a second, which is 24 frames, which that's even too long.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to sit on that dick for that long, why not make it look like a good dick? Not a Play-Doh dick, I don't know. We talked about dicks a lot in this episode.
Well, the thing about it too is like the whole ending credits shows the rat doing kung fu in a silhouette with the penis, right? It's just, I don't know. It's just there's times in movies where like shock and gore makes sense and it's good, but then like I said, sometimes just that shock value, just to have the shock value of something like that is just like, I'm like, come on, really? It would have been good if, like you said, it would have been just like a 2-second thing, right? We don't need to see close up it. We don't need to see the rat doing karate on it at the end of the movie. We just need like, it could even been implied, right? Like it could have been just like inferred that that's what happened, and I would be like, oh, okay, whatever. That's a shitty way to die or get wounded or but I mean, all the gore in this wasn't bad, you know. Like the dude drinking milk out of the carton, half his face is missing, you know.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like the whole first, 4 minutes of this film were pretty solid, and then it's just like all downhill from there. So
Yeah.
I don't even really have anything much more to say about this film.
Well,
Like,
yeah, it's a bad movie, guys. It's you have Jeffrey Combs, which I mean, again, it's sort of like what I said earlier about like it'd be nice if Barbara Crampton would just accept the roles in the second movie so we can just see her and see how her story plays out. So not to contradict myself when I said that, but I don't think Jeffrey Combs should have accepted the role in this. He should have probably been like, no, that storyline's kind of whack. Because I think if the story's bad, these actors and actresses shouldn't come back for the next film. But like in the case of Bride of Reanimator, I think that was a pretty gnarly storyline. I think it would have been good enough for them to be like, okay, well, this makes sense for this to be the next movie. Like, let's do it, you know? But like Beyond, like if I would have read that script, I'd been okay. And then she bites off the dick and then the rat goes and gets it. And it's like, could you imagine being there that day on set, Justin?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
I don't know, dude. That's how I'm still at a loss for words. Like or it's not that I'm at a loss for words. I just don't have many words to say about.
Well, it's just, it wasn't a great movie. Could it have been worse?
I feel like it could have been a decent enough movie if it was its own thing. Like if Reanimator 1 and 2 didn't exist and this was a movie, I'd be like, oh, that's just one of those, cheesy horror movies. It's fun, whatever. But given that this is supposed to be the third installment in, the Reanimator trilogy, it's just like,
I mean, you don't shoot me, but I wouldn't have liked it either way. If it was a standalone, if it was a...
Well, no, I'm not saying I'd like it, but I would respect it more. I'd be like, well, hey, they tried something. Like, but I'm saying in order for that to happen, like the first and second would have to not exist at all. Like even the H.P. Lovecraft story, like the serial series it would have to not exist. Like this would have to be a standalone film about a mad scientist who got sent to prison and shit hits the fan because now he's reanimating people in prison and all hell breaks loose. Like I can see that existing on its own because there are movies out there that are that bad that are on their own.
Well,
but I think this movie being a trilogy or the final installment to what were two great films, I don't know. I'm not feeling it.
Even though we think this is terrible, Justin, apparently in Sweden, they thought it was fantastic because the Sweden Fantastic Film Festival in 2003 elected this as the grand prize winner of European Fantasy Film in Silver. That was awarded to Brian Usna for Beyond Re-Animator. And then it was nominated for 4 other awards, including Fangoria Chainsaw Award for Best Limited Release Direct-to-Video Film. No, it was
fucked up.
So I was just nominated. It didn't win, but some people were really feeling it, but not me. And, the tagline is "Welcome to Death Row. The doctor will see you now." So just that to me is like garbage.
I will say though, this movie had a budget of $3 million estimated. Its cumulative worldwide gross was $302,586.
Right in the budget.
We can say that it was a flop.
Right in the budget.
Right in the budget.
So
right in the severed dick.
Like literally, if you would have, the blonde character. What was the actress's name that played her? The one that played the oh god, Emily Phillips.
Elsa Pataki?
No, Emily Phillips. She was the blonde one. The one that was
Wait, who was Elsa Pataki?
She was, I don't know. I don't even remember. But the blonde one, if we would have put Sherry Moon Zombie in that role.
No, Elsa Pataki she played Laura Olney.
Okay. Well, if we would have put Sherry Moonzami and had her play Emily Phillips' character, and we would have put Michael Berry, the bald dude from he's a rad actor, but if we would have put him as the bald guy in the cell with the Spanish guy who had the pet rat, and if that Spanish guy would have been Danny Trejo, and if we would have had Bill Moseley play the doctor, not Herbert West, but the other guy, that is a kid. And
Bill Moseley should have been the warden.
Oh yeah, the warden. Yeah, that would have been Bill Moseley. And then we would have called this motherfucking Reanimator.
Motherfucking Reanimator.
Then it still would be marginally better than what we got.
Reanimator of 1,000 corpses.
Go back and listen to our Rob Zombie episode if you're not getting those inside jokes that we have for those things. But so, obviously 1, 2, and 3, the way I look at them is 1 being the best, 2 being the second best, and 3 being just garbage. So how do you feel?
3's not even on the scale.
Right. So Reanimator's gnarly. Watch it as a double feature. Reanimator, Bride of Reanimator. And have a hell of a good time. Don't watch number 3. It's trash. I don't even recommend you watching it. My opinion.
This would be interesting. I suggest this. This would be pretty cool. Do a Frankenstein and Reanimator double feature.
Quadruple
and then a Bride
feature.
Of Frankenstein.
Yeah, quadruple feature.
Quadruple, yeah. But I mean, that's what I would do. But if you want to break it up, do Frankenstein and Reanimator, and then the next day do Bride of Frankenstein and Bride of Reanimator. Or just, be all about that life and do all 4.
Yeah, so like literally Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, watch with your children. Show your kids those if they're under 13.
And then when they go to bed,
you can get your groove on with Reanimator and Bride of Reanimator with that sweet thing that you got sitting next to you.
Yep. So
are we fucking weird, Justin? Are we weird?
I don't know. Comment below if you guys think we're fucking weird. Whoever comments first wins a I don't really give a shit. So
you win a cup of Listerine that Justin's putting dick in.
Yeah.
So this is the part of the podcast where we're going to do some trivia of terror. So this is our new thing that we started in the last 2 podcasts that's taking place of our sleazemail for the time being. So if you guys like to follow along with the trivia of terror, answer amongst yourselves. If you're in your car and you have family members with you, friends, play this with them. The way this is going to work is I've got 2 questions for Justin, and then he's got 2 questions for me. If you're watching this on YouTube, put your answer in the comments. We would love to see if you guys are quicker, wittier, and have a better horror encyclopedia in your head than we do. So again,
if you make
we
better
are not
decisions
allowed
of where to stick your dick.
We are not allowed to Google any answers. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see our hands here. They're away from my computer. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first? Yep.
Yeah, I'll shoot you one first. So let's see. So just so you know, these are all of these questions that we have for each other are from the trivia card game /cards. We're not sponsored at all. We just think the game's really cool. So name 2 horror movies that have no supernatural elements.
That have no supernatural. Name 2 horror movies that have no supernatural elements to them, right?
Yep.
So let's go with. Does Gremlins count? That has a supernatural element, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'd count that as supernatural.
Let's go with. There's that movie You're Next, right? That has the home invasion.
Yep.
There's one.
I actually enjoy that movie.
There's a lot of them. I'm just trying to think of which one I want to mention. And then we'll just go with let's go with one of my favorite slashers. Let's go with Black Christmas.
Okay. We'll count that. So, well, I mean, I say I'd count that as if it's borderline, but it's so okay. So yeah, hit me with yours. You got yours?
All right, yeah. So let me scroll down right here on my cards. Let's see. Name. Nope. I don't want to use that one. That one's too easy. Horror can show up in unexpected places, like when the Nazis opened the Ark of the Covenant in this 1981 film.
So this is a horror film, yeah?
No. It's a horror element in another film. So horror can show up in an unexpected place, like when the...
Yeah, so this is Raiders of the Lost Ark, yeah? Yep. That's why I was like, wait a second.
From 1981, Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yep.
If you haven't ever watched it, it's a rad film, action, adventure with a little bit of horror element because Nazis are fucking scum and they are scary. So
Yep.
Check that out.
Punch your local Nazi. So my next question for you is, Rose Byrne starred in this 2010 supernatural horror film directed by James Wan.
The Ring?
No, 2010.
Who? Rose Burns?
Yeah, Rose Byrne.
James
It's a supernatural horror film,
Wan.
2010. It's one of the very like modernized supernatural style horror movies.
Give me another hint. It's not gonna do it.
Darth Maul's meth head cousin makes a cameo appearance.
Oh, that's oh my god, what is the name of that movie? It's not The Conjuring. It's
No, you're close. It's in the same ballpark.
Oh shit, I know that movie. Because it's that quick jump scare that's in the daylight right behind her. Why can I not think of this? The trivia, guys, the trivia. It puts you on the spot.
It starts with an I. I know you know it, so I'll give you that.
It starts with an I.
Yes.
God. I know the movie. It's not The Innkeepers.
No, but I think, let's see.
Why can I not think of this movie? I know it. I can see the scene plain as day in my head.
All right, you give up?
No. Give me one more clue. Who's in it? Who's in it?
Shit, what's that guy's name? Okay, I'll tell you. Hang on 2 seconds because we're running out of time here. Let's see. How about said the name of the movie out loud as I'm... Patrick Wilson.
What the fuck? Is it one word or two words?
It's one word.
Oh, God. What is it?
Insidious.
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Hit me with my last one. We've got literally about 60 seconds.
All right. Jeff Daniels played a small town doctor, Ross Jennings, in what creepy crawly 1990 film?
Oh, shit. Say it again.
Jeff Daniels played small town doctor, Ross Jennings, in what creepy crawly 1990 film? You know it.
Oh, why am I not getting this now?
Because you're on the spot. It deals with 8-legged motherfuckers, but it's not the 8-legged freaks. It just deals with.
It's not. Is it arachnophobia?
Arachnophobia.
Yeah.
2 for 2. 2 for 2.
All right.
That's it.
All right. All right. So that's going to wrap it up, guys. So, you can check me out on Twitter at HorrorDad13, on Instagram at Dawn of the Living Dad. Andrew?
I am at Drucifer, that is DREWXCIFER, at everywhere: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and at your local movie rental house.
Yeah, so that's going to be it. Thanks for listening, guys, and we will catch you next week.
See ya.